On September 11, 2001, a terrorist group named Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 planes deporting from Logan Airport and attacked the United States. 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center, 1 crashed into Washington, D.C., and 1 in a field in Shanksfield, Pennsylvania. Thousands of innocent people were killed that day, and 14 years later, we remember.
Problem? The walls are breached, so be careful. Yeah, 10-4, I saw that on 68. We're on 71, we're coming up behind.
Morning of September 11th, I was actually driving home from BU. We had had morning workouts with the hockey team, and I was listening to the radio and initially heard that a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center and they were calling it an aviation accident. And then suddenly I heard that a second plane had crashed into the World Trade Center and they were thinking it was not an accident anymore. When I think about how much September 11th has changed me, I think in some ways it's made me more cautious. I think you always have to look at people. You look at people differently, whether you want to or not. I think it's made me a lot more patient. I'd never get angry in lines, security lines, things like that, because I realized, God, I wish they'd done a better job on September 11th. And it's just made me a better family person. I think I appreciate what I have a lot more. How do you cope with the events on a day like that? I think you cry a little, you try to reach out to people to see if there's something you can do to help. You reach out to friends. We sat with our next door neighbors actually and just talked. You think, I don't know if there's any real way to cope with a disaster of that magnitude. Yeah, I guess the quote from George Bush, do I want a strong president? Yes. Do I want a president that's going to stand up for America? Yes. I don't want to get political. I don't want to get this to be about my political views, but I think when we're attacked on our own soil, or even when our troops are attacked on anybody's soil, yes, do I want a president that's going to react to that? Absolutely. How do I mark the September 11th anniversary? I don't think I really do. I don't think it's something to think about every day. I don't know if it's something to, I guess the word is celebrate, but I usually touch base with Mike Bavis on that day, and I always say I think about Mark every day when I look at our Mark, and so I think I'm thinking about it every day of my life. What was the experience like for our family? I guess for our family, there was a big loss and a big gain. We lost Mark. We became much closer with Mark's family. I try to think of the positives, and then I think about Mark all the time, and that it's helped me to get closer to Mike, and it's helped me to probably get closer to his brothers and his sisters and his mother. So if there was anything positive that came out of it, it was that. Tell you about Mark Bavis. Mark was a talented guy. He was a funny guy. He was a great guy. Though, more importantly, I always thought he was part of Mike and Mark. They were two twins that I don't think I ever really separated until that day. Every time I saw them, they were together. Every time I thought about them, they were together. Mike's one of my best friends now, but I wonder what it must be like for him to have literally lost his other half. So I guess that's what I think about more than anything else. How did I find out about Mark it's an even worse story. We'd been watching all day the tapes and all of these things that had gone on and all the things that had happened, and then actually Coach Parker had called me, and he was really distraught, and he's a guy who's always pretty level-headed and doesn't get distraught, and he kept saying something about Mike Bavis being on the plane, and I kept telling him that I had just seen Mike Bavis, and suddenly he said, just Mark was on the plane, and that was it. So it was, well, just a horrible feeling to realize that at one point I thought he was completely wrong because I'd seen Mike that day, and then I realized that I hadn't seen Mark. With Mark, when you think about his dreams, life, background, I think he probably dreamed of being a great coach or being a general manager. He was scouting for LA at the time that he died. I think he probably dreamed about having kids like Mike, watching them grow up and play. He probably dreamed about the days that we have with his family at the beach, about just the simple stuff of having a couple of beers at the beach with a whole bunch of people that you really love. I think there were probably a lot of dreams. It's funny when you say, what do I miss most about him? When I think about what I miss most about Mark, it's Mark. I just miss seeing him. I miss laughing with him. I miss having a beer with him. You miss the fact that he's not here anymore. It's funny when you say, what are my favorite memories about him, because the funny thing for me is the memories are really of them, of Mike and Mark, not just of Mark. Almost all of them center around the weight room or games on a Saturday or going out after a game on a Saturday or whatever it was. Those are the kind of things that I remember, but I really remember them as the twins and not really Mark. They only really became separate after Mark was gone. How do I remember Mark today? I think I remember Mark really because of your brother Mark. I look at our Mark, and that's how I remember. The picture that you posted on 9/11 really teared me up, and it can kind of tear me up a little bit now thinking about it in terms of seeing our Mark wearing the same 11 and having his hockey stuff on. I think we're lucky that we have a constant reminder of Mark in our life. Right down to calling Mark Marky. Mom didn't like the nickname Marky when Mark was little, and then one day she said, but Mark Bavis was always Marky, so it's okay. And so I think that's the best part about how we remember him.
The fact that we were only 2 years old when this tragic event occurred, we do not recall the specific details. But we do relate it to other tragedies that have happened in our lives, such as Sandy Hook and the Boston Marathon bombing. We remember those who helped, were wounded, and were killed in these tragic attacks.